Have you ever been so fired up about a goal, maybe saving money, paying off debt, or reaching that huge goal of financial freedom, only to feel that fire burn out just a few months later?
Yeah, like you start off ready to conquer the world. The next thing you know, you're wondering why Netflix and DoorDash are eating out your whole budget.
You want to do that again?
Nope. That's
Okay. Okay, it's going in there.
Going in.
All right, here we go. Today, we're asking the real question. Does it take motivation or discipline to actually hit financial independence?
Because let's be honest, motivation feels good, but it's the discipline that actually makes it happen.
We're breaking down the difference, telling some personal war stories, and most importantly, sharing the secret to sticking to your financial independence journey even after the excitement fades.
So if you ever wondered why staying on the financial independence path was so darn hard, today's podcast is just for you. Let's get right into it.
Let me ask you a question. When it comes to hitting financial independence, what's more important, Dominic? Motivation or discipline?
Ooh, I love me some good motivation, man. If I could figure out how to always stay motivated, dude, I'd be on top of the world. Thankfully, I don't have to figure it out because I have discipline. And I'm more of a disciplined guy myself. I gotta be honest. I love discipline because it actually gets me to where I'm going. To me, motivation is acceleration, but discipline is the long trip. You can't get there just on acceleration. You can't just get there on that little spurt. It's the discipline that keeps the dream alive and keeps you working towards it.
I like that. So it sounds like you're a disciplined man. So today we're going to be breaking down, share some of our experiences, and give you some real talk about what it actually takes to move the needle on the path to financial independence. So before we get into it, first I want to talk a little bit about motivation and discipline so our audience members knows exactly what we're talking about. Motivation is that feeling of excitement, maybe inspiration, or the energy to start something. You know what it's like. January 1st, you're like, I'm going to be the greatest person ever. I'm going to hit the gym every single day. That's that motivation. Discipline is the thing that gets you to continue to do what you said you were going to do, even when you don't feel like it. Because we all feel like it when we're sitting in our pajamas on January 1st, that I'm going to work out every single month this week. That sounds well and good. But then you actually have to go out there and effing do it. So think about it like this. Motivation is the spark. Discipline is the engine.
True. It's so true. There's so many great quotes about discipline and about motivation. And one of my favorites is, I'm going to say it right now, it's from David Goggins, but it kind of goes in regards to living a comfortable life. Right? Things are easier when you're motivated. Right? We all know this. When the dopamine wears off and you have to really actually try, that's when things start to fold in, right? The quote that I love is, "You're in danger of living a life so comfortable and soft that you will die without ever realizing your true potential." And that's kind of one of the quotes that I love to keep at the forefront of my mind. And, it's like, dude, I got like 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep. I do not want to get up to go do more work. But it's like, dude, your goals don't care about your excuses. You got to do it. You got to do it. And how much greater is the story because you did it? That's kind of how I take it. Maybe you guys have a good quote of the day for discipline as well. I would love to hear it. Me and Chris and I are just absolute fiends for a good quote of the day. So if you'd like, please drop your favorite quote on discipline and maybe even the quote of laziness too. I'm sure you guys have a lot of funny ones in there, but passing it back to you, Chris.
Yeah. So when I think about motivation, I think of motivation as the emotional fuel. You need that emotion to get the thing jump started. But if there's anything we've learned in all these podcasts, it's your emotions are like the clouds. They just keep on passing us by. So for a little bit, you might be motivated. You might have that, whatever it is, but then that cloud just passes by. But something like discipline. So again, motivation, emotional fuel. Discipline, it's sustainable though. It's actually your habitual fuel. The thing that you do regardless of what emotion you have. Today, you might be angry, sad, motivated, not motivated. Discipline is a thing that says, I don't care because I'm going to stick to whatever it is I said I was going to do. And this is so important when it comes to financial independence, fitness, health, just overall life. But since we're a financial podcast, we're going to talk mostly about the financial journey because most people's journey to financial independence takes 5 if you're lucky, 10 if you're lucky, 20, 30, 40 years. And relying only on motivation alone will guarantee burnout because there's no way that you're going to be able to keep your emotional state the same or constant for 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years. That's when you need that discipline to kick that little guy on with a little switch and let him do all the work for you.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I'm sure, it's something that we all struggle with is discipline, right? Because we live in a world today that's so easy. I mean, I know the viewers can relate to this. It's just so easy to be mediocre. It's so easy to be, and I only want to be honest with you guys. I don't want to beat around the bush, but it's so easy to be a loser nowadays. It's so easy to be the type of person that you don't like. And that's what we're trying to get away from, especially with this podcast, right? To inspire you, to teach you, to inform you that one day you could wake up and you might be out of time. And I don't say that to scare you, but I do say it to scare you a little bit because we don't know when we're going. We have no idea. This could be my last podcast. We don't know. I hope not. I sure hope not, because we got a hell of a Friday episode coming up. But you really got to put that fire underneath you. You really got to get going. How do we get going, Chris? How do you be disciplined? Because you're one of the most disciplined people I know. How do you become disciplined?
I think whenever, like even the way we pose the question, right? Is it discipline or is it motivation? I think it's a little bit of both. You can't have discipline without having the motivation to get started. And you can't get started. You can't actually achieve the goal without the discipline of seeing it through. So what it comes down to me is building the systems and the habits that win over time rather than chasing those highs. The motivation, that's the high. Like, yeah, man, I'm going to do it. But it's those systems that gets us to go through it, even when those highs fade. I always like to think of the quote from James Clear. You don't rise to the level of your goals, AKA your motivations. You fall to the level of your systems. So if we set up systems, you create a habit of this is what I do. It's part of my identity. I am the type of person that blank, rather than, oh, I do this occasionally. You make it a part of your personality. I am the kind of person that blank, that goes to the gym. I'm the kind of person that saves money. I am the kind of person that doesn't go into credit card debt. You actually make these statements about who you are as a human being. Therefore, because we all know we have these cognitive biases, and one of the big cognitive biases is making sure that we are consistent, the consistency principle. So if we're going around telling everyone, hey, I'm the kind of person that doesn't go into credit card debt, I'm the kind of person that spends less money than he makes, and then you're going against that, your brain's going to have to figure out all of this stuff of how can I keep these two opposing things staying in line? Because it doesn't want to contradict itself. So be the person that you want to be by saying that you are the kind of person that blank, whatever kind of person you want to be.
Could you define systems real quick? Because I feel like that's such a general term. I think it might need a little bit of clarification for those who might not know or who haven't read any of James Clear's work.
That's a great question. You're a ChatGPT guy, so I'm actually going to have you pull up what the systems actually means. For me, what I would think of is a system is something that you do regardless. And it's just, this is the path. It's step 1, 2, 3, 4, or step whatever. And you do this regardless of how you're feeling. But if we know that, please let us know, Dominic.
Perfect. So in regards to like James Clear and how he thinks about it from his book, Atomic Habits, which Chris and I both love, highly, highly recommend reading that book. It's an amazing book. James Clear says, a set of processes or routines you follow consistently that lead to your desired outcome, regardless of short-term results. That would be the definition from James Clear.
I think he said it a lot better than I did. I just said you do 1, 2, 3, no, regardless how you feel, but his way is a lot better. I want to bring something up though. I think that when we sit here and we talk about the motivations, we talk about discipline, all that's well and good, but without having, this is the most important thing that no one talks about when they're asking these questions. You need a challenge. Without a challenge, without something to actually get out of bed, without something to motivate you to do it, all of it's for naught. So I think, in my opinion, the most important thing isn't asking this question, is it motivation, is it discipline that gets me to my goal? The biggest thing is, what is my challenge? How do I choose to suffer? Why do I want this for myself? I feel like here on the Five Guys, we always go back to this. What are your values? What is your why? We need to start there before we start trying to figure out the system of how to get there. Because God forbid you go through your entire life disciplined and motivated to reach some goal that you never really wanted. You need to make sure that the challenge is something that's worth aspiring to, worth working for, worth putting in 20, 30, 40 years of your life for something that's actually going to get you there. And that's going to help you with the motivation and the discipline because you know that you're working towards a larger aim.
And you pose one of the most difficult questions around, at least the ones that I can think of, right? Finding your why, finding what are you working for? What are you working towards? Why are you working towards it? That's such a difficult question. And I mean, we could spend the next, I don't know, hour and a half talking just about that, but we won't because we want to keep it short and concise for the viewers. But kind of one way that you can better find yourself is through meditation. But I want to do something else in regards to like finding yourself. Sometimes we get stuck in a place of analysis paralysis where it's like, man, I'm 18, I'm 20, I'm 25, I'm 30. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Just do something. Just do something. The path won't reveal itself to you if you're just standing still. It only reveals yourself as you start walking, and it only makes sense looking backwards. So don't just stay still. Keep pushing, keep trying new things. You're going to find what you don't like and what you do like, and that'll kind of lighten your path. It'll make sense. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it takes a little bit shorter. But a quote we always say on the podcast, if you know the quote I'm about to say, congratulations. You're an honorary Phi guy. Quote is, know thyself. It's one of the toughest quotes to accomplish. It's the toughest things to accomplish is to know yourself. But if you can really start to get a grip on who you are, what you like, what you're good at, what you're not good at, your strengths, your weaknesses, and really understand what you're dealing with, man, that's going to get a lot easier for you. Isn't that right, Chris?
I would 100% agree with that. You know, all of man's discontent comes from his inability to sit in a room alone with himself. It's hard to sit there, to meditate, to think on what are my actual values? What do I actually do? That's the reason people hire me for a good amount of money to go through this with them on their financial journey. So we can make sure that we're setting up the right thing before people go their entire life and look back on it saying, what the hell did I do? The amount of clients that I've had in the past or people who I didn't end up working with who were retired, looking back, who had all this money, but didn't have family, friends. They had a nice car, a nice house, and all these other things, but they look back on it and they regret everything. They have all the money in the world and they were still not happy because they went for the wrong aim. They searched for something that they weren't actually looking for. The challenge that they posed to themselves, that they gave themselves the motivation and the discipline to achieve, was the wrong challenge. And that is difficult. And there isn't a right answer. There's not a wrong answer. Somebody might hear that and be like, oh, I would totally sacrifice my family, my kids, my everything for more money. I think that you're crazy. That's just my personal opinion on it. I think that a life of wealth, there's much more than just material wealth. There's more than just monetary wealth. Wealth is this huge, huge thing. But you need to know that for yourself. And whether that be done through meditation, through talking with your partner, through talking with a therapist, through working with a financial coach like myself, there's always different ways of going about doing that. But you need to figure out what's right for you and make sure that the challenge, the aim that you set for yourself is an honorary goal. Because my interpretation of life and the reason that we're all here is to grow in the service of ourselves and, more importantly, in the service of others.
You know, I know in the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned we're going to be sharing some personal anecdotes, some war stories, something like that. I would love to get onto that. I know I'm a big story guy. I know you're a big story guy. Do you have any stories for us in regards to discipline, Chris?
Yeah, I'll talk to you about my journey towards financial independence myself, towards reaching coast financial independence, where my wife and I, we no longer have to save any money for retirement, and we will be set by the time we get there. Given, of course, that the markets continue to do what they do, that there's no zombie apocalypse, that we don't have a nuclear war. If all those things happen, well, then it doesn't really matter, does it? So that's, I always love people say that. Like, well, what happens if there's a nuclear apocalypse? What happens to my retirement now? It's like, who cares? Like, that doesn't matter anymore. You're just giving yourself an excuse to not start. But when I got started with this, I'm in the process of moving and I was clearing out my desk and I found a little index card that I had. It was laminated and it said, I will be financially independent by the time I'm 40. And I used to have that on my computer monitor, just like right off to the side. Every day I would sit there and I would look at that. I will be financially independent by the time I'm 40. And I started that. Oh boy, I was probably about 22 or 23 years old when I wrote that down. And before that, I was working hard, doing all my things, but I was making money and I was spending money. As soon as it came in, I was spending it. Luckily, I wasn't going into debt. I wasn't spending more than I was making, but I wasn't saving anything. Then one day I heard on a podcast about the FIRE movement. And I was like, what was that? What are they talking about? Because they were talking about controlling your money, controlling your destiny. And I was like, how do you do that? What's FIRE? And I Googled FIRE and just pictures of flames came up. And I was like, that's the wrong FIRE. That's not what I meant. So then eventually I realized, oh, it's not an analogy. It's a
Acronym.
acronym. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an acronym for financial independence, retire early. And I was like, what? You can actually retire. Like, you don't have to wait till you're 65. Like, that was a revelation to me. You don't have to wait till the government gives you money. You don't have to do all these things. You can take control of your own destiny. And at that point, man, I went whole hog into it. I was so freaking motivated, listening to every single podcast I could, listening to every audiobook. I was reading, I was staying up late, I was working 50 hours a week, and then I would go home and try to continue to learn how to invest, how to do all this stuff. Eventually that motivation began to fade. And that's when I needed my systems to come into place. Luckily for me, I had the systems of a 401k. I set up an IRA, I set up an HSA, I set up these things, and I had automatic bank deposits already going. Eventually, I learned how to invest, and I started having money immediately go from my bank account once it got deposited in to my investment account. And then from there, I didn't make the wise choice to have it automatically invested. I thought I could beat the market at the time. But since the money was already in the account, I went ahead and I invested it in whatever I thought was best. And luckily, I was actually pretty good at choosing investments. Maybe I was good, maybe I wasn't good, but either way, things worked out for me. And more than likely, it wasn't that I was good, it's just I had the right timing. I was in a bull market. Anything I would have bought would have worked out for me. So I just got really, really lucky in what I did. But the biggest thing is I just had these systems that just stayed in place over and over and over again. And I would look and I would see this progress that I was making slowly at first, really, really slowly at first. But you watch that snowball get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. This is the reason I'm saving 50% of my income. This is the reason that when all my friends are going out and they're drinking and they're partying, that's the reason I pregame at home super hard and take an Uber there. So I don't need a drink. So I don't need to do any of that stuff. Eventually, I even got rid of all of that. And you kind of develop slowly to become the person that you want to be. But it takes, first off, the motivation to get started. It takes the discipline to keep with it. And most importantly, it takes the challenge. The challenge of I will be financially independent by the time I'm 40 because I want to spend time with my kids. I want to be financially free. I want to be quote unquote successful to what I think success is. All of these things is what I wanted. And then eventually I continued to find more and more reasons along the way that kept me motivated, kept me disciplined, and kept me challenged.
I really loved that story. I want to point one thing out because I try to take a few things from each story. But the note card idea, I love that. Was that text? Was it images? Well,
it was handwritten.
Could you explain that a little bit? Handwritten.
Yeah, it was a handwritten card, laminated. There's a 3x4 or whatever it is, 2x4 little index card, laminated. It was handwritten on there. At one point, I went to one of those like motivational conferences where they teach you how to invest and whatnot, and that was one of the things: is you write down your goal for investing. You know, that's when I was learning how to do quant investing. That's when I was learning how to do value investing. And luckily, I learned all those things. I'm not a master by any means, but I've learned how to do all of it over time. And then eventually I realized that that wasn't the right way for me and for the clients that I serve. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't the right way. But in part of that was, hey, I want you to write down the thing that your goal is. What is your life goal right now? And where a lot of the people there were like, I want to become a master trader. I want to do this. I want to do that. My goal was becoming financially independent by the time I was 40. And the reason for that at the time wasn't so that I could just sit on a beach all day. Actually, that was the goal at the time, was I wanted to sit on the beach all day. I just didn't want to work. And the hardest thing, and the thing that I was trying to teach here on the podcast is we all come into financial independence, financial freedom, because we're running away from something. But the goal of our podcast is to teach everyone that running away from something, that's good. That's good motivation. But the important thing, the challenge, is running towards something. What are you actually running towards? Because if you think that once I get to financial independence, I'm going to be so happy lying on the beach all day, I can't speak for everyone, but I can come to like 99% of people who are the kind of person that is driven to achieve financial independence early is not the kind of person that just quits and doesn't work anymore. They will lose their mind. They will go into depression just like I did. So you need to run towards something. You need to have a challenge that is an honorable goal that serves yourself and others.
I wonder if like the modern day note card would be like doing like a handwritten note, taking a picture of it, and then putting it on like your phone screen, right? So you see it every day. Um, I love that idea though. I love that idea. I might steal that one. I might actually steal that one. I find that I do a lot of things digitally. All my notes, all my goals, everything I need is digitally, but I only see them when I see them. Right. So maybe I need to take it out and put it into the physical world. I love that. So I wanna move on real quick um, to our next segment. If you're cool, is that cool? Perfect. Did you want to do key differences, or do you want to do like common pitfalls? What were you kind of feeling
Yeah.
for this one?
Let's do common differences. We already did some key differences. A little bit of motion is just fuel. Discipline is habitual
Yeah.
fuel. But some of the common pitfalls that I find is so many people when they come to me for financial coaching, they're like, "Oh no, I'm super motivated. Like I'm going to get this done. I actually don't even need a financial consultant or anything like that because I am so motivated." And the thing I always tell them is, if you think I'll just stay motivated forever, spoiler alert, you will not. That is one of the most common pitfalls. It's like, I'm motivated right now. And then our brain has that bias, right? Whatever is right now will stay consistent forever. So you kind of think like, oh, I'm motivated right now. I'm going to be motivated forever. And then 10 minutes later, when you're no longer motivated, you're looking back on it. You're like, how did I ever think I was going to stay motivated? It's the same thing for me doing the cold plunge every freaking day, right? I'm so motivated right now to do a cold plunge tomorrow.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, when I actually have to do it, there's going to be every little thing of my inner bitch that's going to make me walk around my garage, walk around that cold plunge, anything like maybe I'm feeling a little sick, maybe I'm a little tired. I didn't get great sleep last night. I should definitely skip it. Motivation fades.
Yeah. So, a quick question. I just want to play the devil's advocate right here. So, if you're motivated right now, well, why don't you tell yourself, Chris, it's like, well, I'll do it when I'm motivated.
That's all well and good, but what happens if the motivation takes forever? What happens if the motivation doesn't come in the time frame that you need it to? What if the motivation, especially for financial independence, how many people say this? I will save money when. I'll start investing when. Dot dot dot. When
Yeah.
things line up, when the stars align, when all of these things happen, when I get the next job, the next promotion, the next this, when I pay off that debt, all of them are excuses. They're all excuses for not getting started right now. That's where discipline comes in. That's where your systems, your habits, your routines come into play because the motivation got you started. Well, the challenge really got you started. The motivation is the thing that kicked off the challenge, but the discipline, those systems, the habits are the thing that you need to work on. Because if you're waiting for the perfect alignment of the stars and all the things happen where everything's perfect and I have the motivation and I'm ready to get started, the chances of that happening are close to nil.
Okay. Just wanted to play a little devil's advocate, see what you thought. Definitely. So, continuing on with our takeaways and our different common pitfalls, how can someone start to build discipline, right? Because I know you don't go from zero to Chris Monzon overnight, right? It's a task, right? It's a buildup. You just take one step at a time. How do you take that first step?
Being true to yourself, saying something that I'm going to do this, I'm the kind of person that, and then following through with it. Unfortunately, the person that we are all most likely to let down because we're like, oh, no one really knows is ourself. But the person we are should be the least likely to let down ever is ourselves. Because that person, there's someone inside of you, that internal voice, that Jiminy Cricket, whether you call it the logos, the unconscious, whatever you want to call it, who is listening, who is watching, who is seeing all of these things, who is watching you tell yourself or tell other people that I am the kind of person that, and then you fail it. You're not that kind of person. You're inconsistent in your values. And if you do that for too long, eventually your brain, your unconscious begins to go like, oh, this person's just full of crap. Like, why should I do anything that they say they're going to do? When things get tough, this person faults. They don't actually do what they want to do. So you need to start to stay consistent. You need to start to do what you say you're going to do and be the person that you want to be. And I know that's difficult. So start small. Start with little things. Hey, I'm the kind of person that makes their bed in the morning. I'm the kind of person that if you have a mailbox that's at the end of the street, I walk to the end of the street and I open the mailbox. I'm not the kind of person that drives to the end of the street. And then just make those little habits and just stack it, stack it, stack it. Everyone thinks that the goal is to win the game today, when the real goal is to play the game tomorrow. You need to continue to play the game over and over and over again. And this is the big thing. You don't beat yourself up when motivation dips. You don't beat yourself up when your systems, your habits are a little bit off. What you do when that happens is you look at it, you say, okay, my system, my habit failed me. Is it a me problem or is it a system or is it a habit problem? If it's a system or a habit problem, you change the system, you change the habit. If it's a me problem, you know what to do. You need a little bit more motivation. You need a little bit more discipline. You need to just stick to what you need to do. Maybe you need to take the goal that you set yourself and make it a little bit smaller. I always look at that like that. When someone says like, hey, there's a big chasm to jump here. If someone goes like, oh, I can't make that chasm. Okay, cut it in half. Whatever that jump is, whatever it is, if I want you to go 0 to 10, you're like, I can't do that. Okay, let's go 0 to 5. I can't do that. Okay, 0 to 2.5. I can't do that. 0 to 1. I don't know if I can do that. 0 to 0.5. Okay, I think I can make that jump. If it's too scary, half it. You have tomorrow to increase it. Just because you say I'm going to do something today doesn't mean you have to do it again tomorrow and over and over and over again. Because the worst thing that people can do when they beat themselves up is they say, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I chose the wrong path. And they give up. And of course, they're never going to achieve it if they give up too early. You want me to go on to the fourth or the last common pitfall? Or do you have anything that I triggered in you?
I just loved what you were saying there. I just loved what you were saying there. I hope you guys can go back and rewind that and listen to that another time so it can really sink in. No, I love that. I really love that. I would love to continue on though.
Perfect. And then our final point, or common pitfall that I see, is that people fail to build their discipline early on when their motivation is high. Motivation and discipline, they work together, and they're all based off of the challenge that you set for yourself. If you have a good aim that you're setting for, then your motivation, your discipline can be strong together. But you need to set up those systems, those habits, those routines when your motivation is at its strongest. What most people do, and the reason most people fail, is because they go in there and they say, my motivation's high. It's going to stay high forever. I'll figure out the discipline stuff. I'll figure out the systems later on. And then eventually when the motivation begins to dip even a little bit, they're like, what's the point? I'm not going to do it. But if you set those systems in place while you're motivated, you already know, hey, when I wake up, I am the kind of person that has their clothes sitting right there. I'm the kind of person that goes for a mile walk. I'm the kind of person that just drives to the gym and walks inside there. I'm the kind of person that looks at their bank statement every single day to make sure that I'm sticking within my budget or my spending plan, if you were. That you're that type of person, you're going to stick to it. Make sure you make that systems, those habits, while the motivation's at its highest, while you're at your peak emotional resonance. Because once you're at your peak emotional resonance, when the feeling is so high, it has nowhere to go but down.
And I love what you're saying there, because there's actually a way to make discipline easier. It's just planning ahead, right? You want to make discipline as easy as possible. Plan ahead. Put your clothes out the night before. Set your calendar the night before. Have your to-do list made the night before. Have your lunch packed, right? Have your breakfast. If you're doing a yogurt and some granola, have it made, right? Prepare. Life gets so much better. And I mean so much better when you prepare, guys. So much better. If you can, even just going into a meeting, right? If you take 10 minutes to prepare before a meeting and everyone else walks in there unprepared and you're prepared, dude, you're going to stand out like crazy. And the same goes for everything else in life. You want to be as prepared as possible. And don't be too hard on yourself. But, we are kind of under the gun here, but remember to be kind to yourself. I know it's not talked a lot about. I know maybe a lot of times you'll hear that this is a very softened generation, but I would argue that this is actually the meanest generation, the nastiest generation to ourselves, right? Maybe it's because we haven't built up that inner defensiveness because, one way or another, but remember to always be kind to yourself, but don't let yourself off the hook.
Great points, Dominic. So before we leave, I'd like to leave you some tips and takeaways. So first off, use motivation to start and make sure that you capitalize on that energy to set your systems in place. Make sure that you shift your focus from feelings to actual action. Your feelings are great, but your feelings wane. But the actions that you say you're going to do, the discipline, the prioritizing, showing up and not feeling just excited, but no matter what your excuses are, I'm going to show up. I am the type of person that shows up to the place that he said or she said they want to be. Build tiny, consistent habits that are tied to your goals, whether that be automating your savings, track spending weekly, laying your gym shoes out right by the door, putting your clothes right next to your bed, doing whatever it is that you need to do. If it's too big of a goal, make it a little bit smaller. If your goal is to wake up every day at 4 a.m. and you can't do it, make it 6, make it 7. That doesn't mean that it has to be 6 or 7 for the rest of your life. You can just incrementally make it a little bit better. The biggest thing is I want you to revisit your why when things get tough. Reconnect with your purpose, not just fleeting hype. Too many of us, we all just go with the fleeting hype, with the motivation. But the why, AKA the challenge that you set for yourself, that's the thing that's going to keep you going when motivation and discipline wane. There's going to be things that are going to come up in life. That's going to happen. And in those moments where life happens, mom gets in a car crash, baby gets sick, something happens, all the systems, the discipline, those things are going to go out the window because life happens and you have to deal with that. But if you remember the reason that you stuck to it, once you get back into the groove, then you know that I can just walk right back into this. My discipline didn't go away. My motivation didn't go away. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And the final thing is you want to have accountability. And if you can't be accountable to yourself, then be accountable to your partner, be accountable to your friends, be accountable to fellow podcast hosts. We've created a community here at the Fi Guys of people that want to help one another, that want to be there for one another, who don't even know each other. Help from other people helps discipline stick.
I love that. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. I hope that you got something from it and you actually use the discipline tools that we talked about in today's episode. We're going to be doing a little bit of a recap on Friday's episode with a mailbag attached to that as well. If you don't know what the mailbag is, stick around for Friday's episode to find out. But with that being said, we appreciate you being a viewer here. Please share the podcast, like the video, subscribe if you're not already following us. We'll be posting these every week, as you know. I'm Dom. He's Chris. We're the Fi Guys, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.